Welcome to another edition of Talking with Kevin and Son and showcasing the people you should know. Today, we will welcome a man who is redefining what it meant or what it means to build legacy through purpose, through people, and execution. Mr. Donald Byrd, he is a visionary, entrepreneur, author, and a systems architect, the founder of Birds International, Birds Financial Group, and the Birdhouse Riverside. We'll talk about that. He is also the creator of a family of frameworks called Operating Systems for Life, including Lifestyle OS, Masculinity OS, Wealth OS, and Persistence OS, each designed to help people live initially, led with integrity, and build lasting legacy. In his upcoming book, Revaulting America, I think I've said that right, Donald has challenged how we view and work with wealth, reminding us that execution is the most undervalued resource in America. Beyond the boardroom, he is also a devoted husband to Catbird, a father of four, a man who his family, he moves in faith, freedom, and reshaping the way we think about today's success. Our mission with this show is to give power to your voice, to inspire, share experiences, and to create a framework where we are teaching and we are learning. Our purpose is hope, helping other people every day. And before I go on, I have to also acknowledge we have a new sponsor. I'm talking about at 149 East Lancaster Street in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. There is a new happening spot. They call it the Borough. I have good friends there. I got JT. I've got Chris. An executive chef happens to be my original co-host, my son, Theo McLemore. If you ever get a chance, you're going to spend a Sunday afternoon watching every single sports event in town. Their first level is upscale sports bar. The second level is fine dining. And then on Fridays and Saturday nights, they have live music. So without any further ado, let's get this show on the road. And again, welcome to Talking with Kevin and Son. Let's talk about purpose, power, and the people, because today we're going from execution to equity with my good friend, entrepreneur, powerhouse father, and just a downright good person, Mr. Donald Byrd. How you doing, D?
I'm doing all right. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and it's good to have you as a friend. Thank you for having me.
No problem. For my listening audience, one of the reasons why I created this show is because to have people on like Donald or Mr. Bird, because I've watched him for the last couple of years, from toddler to tot, come in, work diligently in the executive cafe at Lifetime Fitness here in KOP. He has not missed a play date with his children. He has not missed an afternoon of watching an event or, ballets with his children. And part of the reason why my son and I started this show, because one of the things that we wanted to showcase is that all Black men are not people baby daddies. We show up every single day and we do that one thing. We take care of our responsibilities. And this is the poster child for what a man should be doing, when he is working, taking care of his children, getting them to and from or whatever, and still is producing. So I want to thank you for being not just an entrepreneur, but being the man that your parents wanted you to be. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Bird.
Kevin. Wow, all of those things. While the superlatives are humbling and you make me blush a little bit, they are true. And you did see me every day at Lifetime with our two newborn twins. And you saw them grow from the stroller to running around through the floor. And we have two older kids too, so I have four children, and it's been an experience for us to manage work and life and children and all of the other things in between. And you mentioned just the aspect of being a father and how important that is to me. Um, yeah, working, I held up my book earlier. I got another book here, right? You saw me, you may have not have known what I was working on, but all of these things that are manifesting now in my business, in my life, in my children, were things that I was working on all that time. And, it did take a level of diligence and discipline, and commitment to my family, but also commitment to my work, my profession, my craft, my community, to produce these things that I think will ultimately be helpful to us all as we endeavor in having the most full life we can. But, the first thing you got to remember is that you have to water the flowers, and those children are so important. And, just to give you a quick glimpse, you saw some of it, but I took a step back from my career, through COVID and through having the twins, because my wife's career was accelerating. And, coming out of COVID, there were, few spaces for new babies to get involved in a daycare, especially the ones we were willing to have our children at. And then we had two babies, which made it even more complicated. Fortunately, I had my own company, and I was able to be the primary caregiver for my children, as you saw. And that didn't stop my business, but it definitely slowed me down a little bit. But we just got the kids in. They're almost 4 years old, believe it or not, Kevin. And we got them in a full-time school. So I'm back at it. You see me here today. I came from a meeting. We're doing this show. We got the books out, and we're going onward and upward from here. So, but thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. It's just something very important to me and dear to my heart.
Well, since we are both on the same page when it comes to who we really are. I mean, when most people ask, who are you and whatever, we give our resume. But
Right.
since I've known you, I found out who you are as a man. Now, this is important because right now, when it comes to the dynamics in the household of man and woman, our social media makes relationships transactional. How do
Yeah.
you, as a man, having to go out and challenge yourself and carry all the weight of the world and stigma between you and your wife, and please acknowledge her by her full name instead of just the wife. How does that
Sure. My
conversation
wife, Kat,
go when
you
she
know,
becomes when she
yeah, go ahead.
becomes the primary caregiver and you take on the role of stay-at-home dad? Because I know when I did it, I was upset every single day, and the reason why, not because of the relationship I had with my spouse, but it's the way that my neighbors, the men in the neighborhood, presented me. When my wife set up play groups, me not being accepted with women with my child because they thought I was less of a man because I didn't have a full-time job, and little did they know that I had a thriving career before I moved to from New York to Pennsylvania, and we had agreed since her the opportunity for her to flourish um, was presented versus me trying to continue to do what I was doing. I allowed her to take the driver's seat, and she allowed me to be the father that I chose to be because my father never spent any time. So there are a lot of men out there that neighbors and social media make you feel less. I am proud of you. I am going to say
Thank
that.
you. Wow.
How does that
Uh,
conversation
That's
between
it's a lot to I'm listening to your question as relate to my experience, and it's wow. It's a lot to unpack, and it takes a level of confidence, self fortitude, um commitment, and understanding and communication with your spouse, a level of humility, right? For me, I had a flourishing investment career. I was traveling all around the country, doing something really cool in the investment business that's now the industry standard. I got in on the ground floor doing that. And I say that to say, one, I had an exciting career, and two, I made a nice amount of money in the way of, being able to support my family through this transition, but also being able to be opportunistic and path dependent, and for lack of a better opportunity to talk about this, a little forward thinking and progressive, if you will, to allow my wife, who, to be just in all candor, um, who, when you think about women at large, are generally first generation career at this moment in our history, in our time. And I understand that. Me being a man and masculine man, I understand that, there's a conflict there at some level. But I understand my wife, Kat, is an amazing woman. First of all, you got to meet her. First of all, I think you may have met her in passing, but she's phenomenal. First of all, so um, real recognizes real in a way. When you think about it in that perspective, I can see the and respect how amazing she is in her own right. But also, am a businessman, and I'm also a strategist, a an investor, um, and a student. Always willing to learn and always willing to um, be creative. So, the moment that we found ourselves in, again, my wife Kat is an amazing lady. She was doing really well in her career. We were both traveling very heavily for our work. We had two young children. It's funny. Not met a guy. I saw a guy yesterday who came to the open house at our school, and I used to work with this guy, but also know him from the investment business. And, he's kind of at the same place that I was at 10 years ago when my first two children were 4 and 2. And he was at the open house yesterday, and he's kind of does a similar role that I used to do. And his children are 4 and 2. It's a very tough age, very, very tough age for
Hmm.
any parent, but
Right.
definitely a parent who has a full-time, high-powered, ambitious role at work. Especially if two people are trying to do that. We found ourselves in that situation, and similar to what you said, I looked at the landscape. I already knew what I wanted to do with my career, and I was always an entrepreneur. Sometimes the company was kind of my, first investor, if you think about it. But I already knew where I wanted to go. My wife's career was taking off right around 2016, 2017, 2018. We had, not to get political, but you had a lot of women, empowerment things happening. I'm not blind to the landscape of the world for black men in the corporate world, and just the peril that you face at you know just being kind of stranded out there, right? You don't have support, no institutional scaffolding, no business company scaffolding, meaning no deep relationships, no networks that are going to save you from being a black man in corporate America. So I understood that, and maybe presciently understood that so early, and I knew my wife was going to do and perform well at work, and just simply being who she is. I mean, she's exactly the prototype of who would benefit from this, whether it's DEI or just any kind of women empowerment corporate world executive type, and she did, and we benefited greatly from it. So, what is the conversation like? I mean, it's not without struggle. My wife, I wrote a dedication to her. I was reading it recently to uh, give you some more candor. Everyone today is facing some level of economic anxiety, right? So,
Right.
that's part of, I think, everyone's struggle. My wife loves me very much, and I love her the same, if not more. And I'll tell you this: I had to read my dedication to her yesterday to just remind myself how important she's been in my journey, and how critical she's been in the strength and the growth of our business.
Hey,
And
Donald, can I ask a small favor of you?
yeah, sure.
All right, because this interview is going to last far beyond the 35 minutes that we're going to do the show. Before I start asking you questions surrounding the show, you do me a small favor and read your wife's
Yes,
dedication.
I sure can. Let's see here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I do this is because for the simple fact is a lot of times if you watch American television, it's all about the individual on the show or whatever product they're selling, whatever. But little did we know, a lot goes into the creation of a book, the creation of a product, the building of a company. And there's a lot of sacrifices. And a lot of times that we only give the roses. That's in our culture. We only give accolades to those people after they're laying in a box. And I'm a
Right,
firm believer that people should show their love every single day. So, Donald, if you're ready,
absolutely. So, this is part. I wrote a number of things, acknowledgments and special thank yous. And I have
let's
two. I'll
just
read
focus on
two.
your
So,
wife.
Here, it says here, to my wife, Kat, thank you for your belief, your patience, and your partnership. Thank you for the space. Thank you for seeing the vision long before the words were typed. None of this happens without your magnificence. Your strength made this book possible. Um,
What's the
to
title of the
all
book?
the title of the book is called Revaluing America, the book you spoke about earlier.
Okay.
Um, so so maybe that was the one of the I'm trying to find the dedication that I read yesterday. Maybe it's here in the Power of One. Oh, here it is. So in this book here, I have a special thank you. I thank my daughters and my kids. Um, but I'll read the one about my wife here. It says here, and to my wife, Kat, thank you for giving me the space, the support, and the quiet strength to pursue my passion. Your belief in me has never wavered. Thank you for holding it down while I chased something deep and personal. You are the foundation behind the foundation, and none of this would be possible without you. So those were the two dedications from my book to my wife. So
All right.
really just acknowledging just how important they've been to my journey
And
and
that's the
how
reason why I
important.
wanted, and
Yeah.
that's the reason why I wanted you to go ahead and read the acknowledgement, because it is very hard. It's easy for someone to read your words, but it's harder for a man to speak his words, especially when he's so close to the recipient of the words. A lot of times, we, as writers and authors, we sacrifice a lot of time away from our family and friends in order to put words on a page to share our life experience with other people. So, before we go on and get into the questions, one, I'm going to ask, how do we get in touch with you, and where can we get your books? And then we'll go ahead and start the show.
So you can get in touch with me online at birdbrand.net or at Donald Bird brand. So I'll say birdbrand.net is my website, and Donald Bird brand is my handle for all of my social media. So it's pretty easy if you just Google me to find me. The book Revaluing America, all my books, Power of One and Revaluing America, are on Amazon and where you buy your books, but Amazon is the easiest place to get it. You can go right on Amazon and Google my name or the book title, and it will be there, and you can order it.
All right, it's searchable. And ladies and gentlemen, all the information that Mr. Bird, my good friend Donald, is giving you will be in the show description on RMK Productions and Network on our YouTube page and wherever you get your podcast. So, Donald, incorporation to creator, what inspired your journey from the corporate world to founding Bird Brand Enterprises and creating this ecosystem around revaluing people?
You know, when you consider playing the corporate game, kind of as I was alluding to in my comments about my wife Kat and just our journey, and it's an interesting game to play. The whole premise behind the book Revaluing America was was really uh really it was able to be written because of my experience of understanding valuation from an investment perspective, from a odds and probability perspective, but then also understanding the other side of the equation where I witnessed real work be done. My father was a laborer. He was a union man. He was a longshoreman. Um, I did not follow in his footsteps in the way of working with my hands. I went to school and I was an investment professional, but it didn't change how I felt about the landscape between labor and capital and in a corporation. And unfortunately, in a corporation as a black man, I'm never going to get full value for myself. And I knew that at an early age, but I also knew that I needed to get some experience from the real world. And I was very eager to get into the corporate world and get some experience. But I always knew that um, and I'm living through it right now. But I wanted to be the author of my destiny.
And it's amazing. I love this quote. It says, always focus on the step, not the staircase. And you are an example of that, putting it down every single day. Um, and
It's interesting you say that because that's why I wrote even this book here, The Power of One, right? The Power of One, it encapsulates what you just said. Part of my success in anything that I've ever really been have achieved or been successful at, made progress, has been with this mindset of taking each step one step at a time, one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, one shot at a time, one mile at a time, one pace. You know, that's the key. I can't. If you look at these books I have sitting here, I always remind myself that if I were to consider how much work it takes to finish a book and actually publish it, to have it be sitting here, it would never get done. If I was concerned with who's going to read my book, I would never have written it, because guess what? No one's going to read your book until you get so famous that they have to read it. Even people that purchase your book they're not going to read your book. So you can't write your book for people to read it. You have to write it for a bigger purpose. And I wrote mine to myself and to my children. And that was my biggest purpose of all. So whoever else reads it is icing on the cake.
it's funny that you preface it that way, because everyone always, when they find out, I don't know if you've experienced this, when they find out you're an author, is that they say, I always wanted to write a book. And I always ask why. Everyone thinks they have a story to be told, which I personally believe everyone has a story to be told, and everyone should be an author of the book. But when you go to publishing, they ask you who's the book for. And it's hard to sell a book when you say that I'm writing for myself, I'm writing for my kids. But it's 386 million people in the United States, and there's 8 billion on the planet. In my conversation, I always say I write it for the 1%. The 1% be people that look like me, that think like me, the people that move like me, and it's people that act like me and believe like me and have faith like me. And you write it for the same reason. You write it for the people that love you. You write it
That's
for the
it.
people that respect you. We write it for the people that you're setting a foundation for. And all those people like me come into your life. And
That's it. And
I'm
to
glad.
carry that conversation or that thought forward, that's kind of a way to think about it, in a way of progress or process to get through it, but also to tell your story. I think it's a great way and you amplified it in a way that I love. And I think about it like this. Excuse me. I write the book for people like me. And guess what? What's going to get them to read it is if I embody what I want them to be, so much so that they're inspired by me so much that then they have to go read what I wrote. But
Yeah.
people aren't going to read your book for really any other reason. I'm starting to understand that after becoming an author. People are going to read your book when they feel inspired by you. That's the only reason they're going to
That's for
read your
sure.
book. They have no
And
other reason to sit down and go through those pages.
And I'm glad you clarified it like that, because when I talk about and I hear authors say people like me, and let me explain this to our audience. When people that are successful are saying people are like me, it's the same way that I surround myself with people that have the same mindset, the same process, and same work ethic. And that has nothing to
Hmm.
do with my skin color or
Right.
economic company or whatever. I grew up dirt poor. It's people that get stuff done. And Donald Byrd is one of these people that gets stuff done. And so when I move on and I talk about his system approach, when you build a multi-level operating system, all right, from lifestyle to your present operating system to your philosophy behind these ideas, how do these systems transform, and how do people approach this and interwove this with leadership and wealth? And the reason why I ask this is because there's a lot of young people that they're chasing a dollar, or in our community, chasing a bag. Depends on how you define
And they're
that.
looking for the glitch too. You heard that?
Yeah, I hear that too. Is how do you explain this mindset? Because I always say that, a dollar bill has no loyalty to anyone. And we're
Mm,
chasing something that doesn't want to be caught, that doesn't want to
mm,
stay with you, that
hmm.
doesn't value you, that will either make you, support you, or break you, or define exactly who you are? How do
Hmm.
you, on this approach? Let's talk to young people because we got a bunch of people across the country that's going to be graduating from college, going to their senior year. We have a bunch of young people that's going to be graduating from high school, going to senior year, thinking about college, and everyone needs a job because they can't afford it. How does this approach to leadership and wealth apply to the next generation?
So that's a big question. Let's try to break that down in bite size so that people can understand. First of all, I realize that most people don't fail from a lack of effort, they fail from a lack of structure. So that's what the operating systems are for. Talk about chasing the bag. I look at it like this. You set it up perfectly. The money part, the dollar bill, those are running, those are fleeting. You can't grab them. And if you do grab them, by the time you grab them, they're not worth what you thought they were when you ran after them, right? You see what they're doing right now before your eyes. You thought they couldn't steal money from you. You thought they couldn't take money from you. You thought you were protected by the Fifth Amendment that says that the government can't take anything from you without due process, life, liberty, or property. They just did it by inflating the price of everything. So now they don't need to take the money from you by force. They just make you pay more for all the things that you need to live and survive. So if you're chasing the bag, that's the wrong way to think about it. I've taught my kids and I teach these financial literacy courses. I talk about a continuum of value, currency, and money. I'll break it down what I mean. Value. First of all, you'll never get money, the end result, without adding value. You have to add value to get money. So, first of all, think about what you're after when you say you want money. You're actually after obtaining value. What you purchase with the money is something valuable to you. So you're wanting value. You pay for value. So how do we get more of that? You have to get ahead of the curve. You have to get ahead of the continuum and start finding how to build and attract value. Then what you do with that value, once you add that value, you learn how to do that, you obtain a level of currency. And I'll explain what I mean by currency. Most people mistake or conflate money and currency. Currency is easiest described where similar to the club, right? I come to the club, they know me there. You know, now I always like to use a nightclub because it's very easy, but take a nightclub, you go, you're known there, you do good things, you buy drinks, the bouncer sees you next time, he lets you in for free. That's currency because you don't have to necessarily pay with money. You've already paid with adding value at that establishment. But the reason why you need money is you have to go up the street to a new club. They don't know you there. So now you have to pay money. But the whole point is adding value, obtaining currency, and then figuring out how to monetize that because you got to buy Starbucks with money no matter where you go. But the what I would say to young people, hopefully if that made sense, think about where you can start to add value in your life, in your community's lives, your family's lives, other people's lives. Because once you figure out how to add value, the money will come. You don't need money when you can add value. You do need to learn how to monetize the value. And that's where we're stuck. That's a lot of the work that I do as far as the OSs when I talk about people lacking structure and why they need the operating systems. Well, we have to learn how to manage our time because that's the most valuable resource we have. That's what lifestyle OS is about. That's what masculine OS is about. We have to learn how to manage our money. How are we going to thrive in a capitalistic society and we don't have a handle on how to manage the very thing that gives us life? We have to figure that out. That's what wealth OS is about. And we obviously have to figure out how to manage the relationships with the other humans here on this earth, right? That's what legacy OS is about, and some of the other OSs. And then I created these OSs are like worlds. I reluctantly create a new OS, and I'm probably at a point where I'm done. But when I would create a new one, it was a whole world for you to be thinking about how to present yourself. When I think about presence OS, masculine OS, wealth OS, lifestyle OS, and these are big silos of your life that you want to master if you want to be great, right? When you think about these things. Um, so I said a lot there. Hopefully, it starts the conversation of because I don't have the answer of what young people should do. This is a new world that we are going into, Kevin. The world you grew up in. I was even telling my children. I'll tell you this: you and my parents and your parents, they taught us how to succeed and survive in a 20th century construct, right? They taught
Right.
us in the 20th century how to win. Go to school, be a good boy, follow the rules, speak up for yourself, get an education, get a good job. Okay, those were the ways we won in the 20th century. No longer can we tell our kids those things. We have to say, listen, yes, all of those things are true, but they will not guarantee your success. What will guarantee your success in the future is influence. Who can you move? That's the only thing now with AI. You no longer will be asked to do, who can sew. We don't need a sewer. We have a sewing machine. We have a washing machine. We have a coffee maker. We have an email writer in Chat GPT. Listen, we don't need doers. We need thinkers, we need creators, and we need influencers. Who can you move? Who listens to you? Who do you inspire? Who do you influence? Because that's what the computer cannot do. That's what the human will do. And that's where you can start to tell young people back to influence is what? Value. You add value to people when you influence them because they are inspired and they believe you. That's the way for young people today.
Man, if you had a mic in your hand, we'd be dropping it right now. Uh, I'm going to tell you, you hit the nail on the head, as my grandfather would say it. You also brought up a very important point when we talk about legacy, is that I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather had an eighth grade education. So when you talk about legacy, my legacy ended with his eighth grade education. And then it was built on a foundation of character and integrity and a dream. So in your book, um, you talk about execution of equity in reevaluating America, which is what you said is the most undervalued resource in America. Can you explain to me what you mean and how this principle drives the Bird brand?
Absolutely. So it's it's a lot to unpack when you think about what execution and how it plays into our outcomes in this country. So when I think about how did the book come about, revaluing America, like I said, based on my experience and understanding of of the inequality that we have in this country, the economic disparity that we have in this country, we have to figure it out, and it's becoming exasperated for sure because of the capital markets and the new world we live in, where money is portable, easily invested, and distributed electronically. So when I think about execution, and I think about what the way I came up with these ideas, these words come from my understanding, and then they come from subject matter, and then I start to put them together to really understand what we're talking about, right? When I think about capital, what is capital? Capital is resource. Capital is stored labor, value, money, invested, compounded. It's a resource, though, but it's a construct in a way that we've created here as man. Um, when you think about labor, what is labor? Labor is the execution of capital, if you will. It's the execution of anything we all we do. And I started to look at the the people who are the executors in our society. They are the true wealth of this nation, right? Who are the executors? They are the wealth. The capital is not the wealth. And it made me start thinking, wait a minute, I'm onto something here. We think the capital is the wealth. It's not. The wealth is truly in this country the laborer, the person who executes, the paramedic, the the barber, the the nurse, the electrician, the plumber, the welder. Those people who truly execute our society. And I started thinking, wait a minute, we're not getting a fair deal. And see, we went too long. We went too long and far on this economic revolution, if you will, to reevaluate and to really take stock and say, hold on, where are we when we think about labor, when we think about capital, when we think about value, dollars, contribution, dignity, and the American dream at large? Too quickly, we went through the 90s and the 2000s, and we saw money exponentially grow. We have not seen wages keep up. We have not seen value keep up. And legacy, what I write about in my book is that legacy for the laborer is dead if we do nothing. The laborer will never, ever, ever have a legacy again in the history of this world if we don't figure out how to restore dignity to work and reward contribution, not capital. And what we've been doing for the last 50 years is simply rewarding the proximity to capital. And you have to ultimately start to ask yourself, simply having capital is not enough. Having capital and being a good steward of that capital is what is needed in our country at large and geopolitically, globally at large, because now the capital holders are so far removed from the value adders that we are going to reach a peril in our society that is too far of a disconnect between the people who've added value and the people who have the capital. And, that's a national security crisis at some level. And that's what I talk about in the book.
Hey, D, Donald, Mr. Bird, for my audiences, like I said, he's a personal friend. You have to remind me, let me send you a song that I wrote that actually executes this through a musical lyrics and a urban beat,
Okay.
because someone had basically told me that they wished that I would go back where I came from. And when I
Mm,
asked what did that mean, and they said, well, we want to make America great again. And I said, I was born in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. I've always been an American. And I said, can I ask you an intelligent question? He said, yes. And I said, what do you think would happen in 30 days if everyone you talked to that looked like me left America? They said we took every dollar we had, we took every creation we had, we took every cultural thing that we had and valued and delivered every service. I said, who would drive your kids to school? Who would supply your groceries, whatever? I said, in a week that Wall Street would be in a panic. 2 weeks later, after that, they'll be calling us to figure out what did we do wrong when
indeed.
you have to do things for yourself. And I said, in 30 days, I mean, you think about the economic value that we add to our ecosystem. If that was gone, what would happen to this America? All right, you will find out you sent greatness away. So when you say it the way that you say it, um, I felt that the words that I wrote in educating people through a beat, you confirmed that what I wrote was necessary. So I appreciate that. But when you go back and you talk about the birdhouse, you talk about family faith and about the birdhouse Riverside, how is it become more than just a business hub, but a movement that integrates the community and its creativity as well as bringing families together? Explain to me what the Birdhouse Riverside is.
So the Birdhouse Riverside is a very interesting development in our world, in our lives. I bought this space 18 years ago as a young man. Thankfully, I was, again, just a very ambitious young guy. I was able to get a property, very early in my life, which I didn't, I thought it was interesting, but I see now that, wow, not a lot of people are homeowners. And we were fortunate enough to be able to move our family. Once we grew our family, we moved our family again. So I kept my old house and I used it as an office space, an event space. It's a beautiful space. We just did an event last Sunday, our financial literacy summit with some of our children and our community members. And basically, we've turned this into a hub, a community space that everyone has been able to enjoy and use, um, and take part in a lot of different ways. Like I said, we've had a financial literacy summit. We've used it as an event space for a private party. I use it as my studio. I am not there now, but I could be there just the same, broadcasting live from there as well. We use it as a podcast. We've leased it or rented it to people who've wanted to do their own podcast there, and we use it for a number of variety of sources. So and it also is a coffee shop in the mornings and a cigar lounge. If you know about us, you can come by and get some of your favorite cigars. And we're going to keep growing and expanding it. But it really has become a cultural hub. And I believe, and as you do too, Kevin, I know as we talk about family, how important it is to us. Um, family, even when you think about community, the common denominator is still family. So once you build in your family, you realize you have a lot of people to work with, and you keep expanding that to your community. Next thing you know, you have something that is, at least in your area, something that is changing the landscape, the vibe, and the connectivity of people. So small beginnings, but we're here, and we've already done a lot of things with the space already. So I want people to go Google it. Go Google it. Birdhouse Riverside. It's a coffee lounge in the mornings. We are open. We're going to get some more hours because we're still developing to start expanding the menu. But we're right now we got coffee and we got cigars. So come check us out. You can visit us at birdbrand.net. You can visit me on Instagram, of course, at Donald Birdbrand. And any other way, I think if you wanted to get in contact with me, if I said I had $1,000,000, you could find me. So you can find me on the internet. But it's a good space. It's a cool space for our family and our friends.
All right, that was cool. I didn't have to worry about asking how do we contact you again. Thank you. You've done this before. Hey,
Yeah.
you brought up the fact earlier when you talk about home ownership and so forth. And I'm looking. I was going to try to stay away from anything current today because I wanted to just to focus in on what you're doing. But I just had this conversation with my son the other day. I said, my son is in a very fortunate position. He just took on the executive chef position at for my sponsor, the Borough,
Yes.
on 149th Lancaster Avenue in Downingtown. And I said that your generation will probably always be renting
Mm.
um, or living in groups because homeownership will become that much harder for the simple fact of just the way things are going right now with the landscape that we live in. I don't know if it's political or whatever. I just think the tides
It's
are
economic,
turning. Yeah,
but
is that they
economics
won't be
is
able to own
political,
homes.
right?
Is there any justification or truth to what I'm saying? Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. You know, when you think about and excuse me for interrupting you, when you think about the um, landscape of home ownership, it is very much economic. It is very much due to factors that some of it is out of our control, and then some of it is very much in our control. But the factors that are affecting the housing market at large are not controllable. We would have to, I do these writings in these books, you know, Revaluing America. I just wrote a white paper. Actually, I haven't even talked about it publicly yet. I'll unveil it right here. It's called the Circulation Act of 2030. It's almost like a policy paper. And I wrote this over the last month or so. The premise is that we cannot go forward with the same playbook. We are not going to figure out home ownership for Americans in places that they want to live, right? I'm talking about in major cities, metropolitan areas where people want to live with the current landscape. The Circulation Act of 2030 starts to address and broach the issue of the fact that we have a level of stagnation in the people who hold the wealth. 70, I think it was 80% of the wealth is held by, if you look at the generations, the silent generation, people born before the baby boomers, and then Gen X and millennials, and whoever's after that. 80% of the money is between the silent generation and the baby boomers, which means that the youngest baby boomer is I think, age 67 or 65. Oh, no, the youngest baby boomer is about age 62. So that means that the people over age 60 hold 80% of the assets. It's problematic. It's problematic for our world. It's problematic for our economy. How can you expect young people who are alive today to contend with an 87-year-old man holding $50 million dollars, just sitting there with it? Like, that's not going to, that has to be a non starter at some level for us, because if you understand the economics and you understand compounding and you understand the landscape of how the capital markets work, this is only the beginning. That 50 million will be 100 million in short order, and you will not be able to do anything more than you could do today in the next 7 to 10 years. So, the question is loaded. nothing's going to happen now, from my expert opinion. Nothing will happen in the housing market. Yes, people will be relegated to renting, which, again, nothing wrong with renting if it's in your financial plan and works well for you. But most times people are looking for long-term situations and ownership that they can build equity. But we will never, and back to what I said, execution is equity. We have to understand what we have to define equity, because we've too long sat and thought about, and this is the problem with when you think about, if you know, I'm not going to get political, but when you think about politics and you think about what that word means, one side of the coin has taken it to me too far, right? One side of the coin has basically have every person represented, and they all need equal. You know, every group, right? The left, when you think about that group, it's not going to work. That's not what equity is. Execution is equity. Sure, do we want equity as far as getting more opportunity? Yes, but we have to define it. It's not you and you and you and you all get the same thing. That's a race to the bottom. But we really have to change the conversation. We just had renting is going to be, and then who do we rent from? One of the things I talk about in one of my white papers is, we live in the city of Philadelphia. One of the largest institutions here is the University of Pennsylvania. All right. Now, I'm going to educate some of your audience here, because most people don't think about the University of Pennsylvania. Like, why do I care about them? Most people don't think about their endowment. Why do I care about how much money they have or in their endowment? Well, let's talk about it. They have $25 billion in their endowment. What does that mean to you? Well, that's a pool of tax exempt money that you'll never see again. They never get taxed on it. And you know what they do with that money? They go into West Philly and purchase single family homes. Why are they able to do that? Why are they able to go and purchase single family homes? And then you know what they do? They put that in their tax exempt status, and they don't pay property tax. So now we're subsidizing them buying West Philly homes so that people can't purchase single family homes at a reasonable rate. You want to know why the property values are so high? That's that point, case in point. Okay. University of Pennsylvania spends $5 billion a year. $5 billion a year. You wouldn't even know that. Most people don't care. I care. Why? Well, who they spend that $5 billion with? Who's getting a piece of that every year? $5 billion gets spent in our community that we don't know anything about. We got to figure that out. We have to start thinking about that. And, it's not that University of Penn is some big, bad institution, but we have to make sure they don't do big, bad things. Back to what I said, execution is equity. You are what you do. So if they are doing big, bad things, we have to call them a big, bad wolf. And guess what? I'm going to tell you one thing. If they are doing big, bad things like going into West Philly, purchasing single family homes with their massive endowment that they don't pay tax on, that should be illegal. And secondly, then they take that money, they exclude our residents. They don't bring West Philly members of the community into their roles, into their jobs, into their institution. Then they go and spend $5 billion, five with a B, and we don't know anything about it. Where are they spent? What group is getting that money? So that's what I want to bring light to start talking about the crisis in housing. We have to start talking about the crisis in access to capital. And then we have to start thinking about the people who have the capital and ask, why don't we have access to the people who control the institution or the capital that the institution spends? That's what my work is about.
Yeah, and I understand that because that system is also, and that hand is being played when it comes to historically Black colleges. Because if you devalue the education and defund the education, then the institute that supplies that no longer has value. And I already know that there's one historically Black college that is listed as a historically Black college, but predominantly it's a white college when you look at the student body there. So I thank you for that education. We can talk about this, for another 2 hours.
I know
And,
so much.
we get 35, 45 minutes on this podcast. But do you mind if I ask you two more questions? One's could
Indeed.
be personal, if you don't mind. Um, so the first one is fatherhood and leadership. How do you balance being a visionary entrepreneur with being a hands-on father of four? And what are the lessons that you are teaching your children about leadership, life, and if they have a responsibility to the community? What are you teaching the four little birds in your house?
Everything. The Bird family, the Bird brand is a bastion of learning and stretching and educating and giving. One of the things we didn't talk about today is the Bridge to Life Foundation. Very
Let's talk
recently,
about that.
yeah, absolutely. We decided to, when you heard me talking about the University of Pennsylvania, there's a flip side to that coin. And I only use the University of Pennsylvania as a highlight because everyone knows the name, but really institutionally, us as community members, but specifically as Black families and community members, we have to think about how our culture is being carried through the annals of time and from person to person, generation to generation. And as I alluded to earlier, your community is one thing, but your family is where your community starts, right? So your family is the community, and then it just branches out to your next door neighbor. And I said, listen, what we have to do, along with the for profit businesses, is teach our children and teach our family about what it means to not only organize and structure yourselves, but then to give back to yourselves and give back to your community, right? Giving back, when I give back to my family, I'm giving back to myself, right? When I help my brother, I'm helping myself, right? And I started to understand it that way even more and more and more. And I said, you know what? One of the things we're not doing as a Black community is taking that goodwill and that good heart that we all have and that we all generally show each other, when we're being our normal selves when the cameras are off, right? And the thing is, how can we start to organize and structure and document the good work that we do to start to take advantage of the things that, again, not to I usually try to stay away from pointing the finger at other people, but I always do like to illustrate what other races or communities do indeed do for themselves in their own communities, right? It doesn't matter which group you pick. They have institutions that care for their children. They have schools, they have hospitals, they have institutions and organizations that support each other emotionally, mentally, physically. And the list can go on. And it dawned on me and I said, you know what? That's what the Bridge to Life Foundation is about. It is about us starting with our own family, giving back to our own family, documenting, organizing it. And then, because what's different between your cousin and your neighbor? Right? It's the same person at some level,
Yep.
right?
Right.
So start helping your cousin with his struggles. I have a cousin that just got out of rehab for drugs and alcohol. All right. Now, I could go look for a recovering addict right now to help, or I could just help my cousin. Right. That's what we thought about and said, hey, listen, and so you asked me about my children. My children are very much involved in the genesis of the foundation. The event we did last week was done on behalf of the foundation. So they're getting a firsthand education on what it means to be part of the Bird brand and part of the Bird family, and they're understanding what it means to learn, to give back, to be kind, to be humble, but also what it means to stand up for yourself and to be in business and to get what you deserve. So many lessons here in our family, and that's why we write the books, because one day someone is going to ask me, what did I do and how did I do it? And I'm going to say, hey, I have a few books you can read. So, but I wanted to get started on it early. I always tell my children, I say, listen, the great thing about doing something hard that you'll have forever is that you don't have to keep doing it over and over again. So whether it's a book, if it's hard, it is hard to produce a book from nothing to manuscript to cover and printed copy. But I don't have to write this again. If you want to read this, you can go buy it on Amazon. I'll have it forever. It's now my property. And I want to teach my children not only about selling lemonade, but then about creating intellectual property that they don't have to continue to make and create and can make and give value while they're sleeping. So all these things my kids are kind of learning through just being around me, because this is how I think. But the Bird brand exists so that if you see me and you like what my kids are presenting and what I talk about, you can get involved easily on what we're talking about and doing, is being part of the Bird brand. You got, the books, the OSs, and the overall business, the coaching, the execution office, and the financial group. I haven't really even talked about Bird Financial Group, but that's part of it. So we have an ecosystem for people when they land with us, to be coached, to be helped, to be stewarded financially, but also culturally in our ecosystem. So I hope that answered your question in a
No,
roundabout way. But
you did. First thing I got to
thank you.
say, I got to get the world ready for your children, for the little birds that's coming out there. But as much as I would like to wrap up this show, you brought up something that was tabled to me 5 days ago. There was a young brother that had created a system and provided a business opportunity that everyone that didn't look like him, I'm talking about Black people, have without question invested in his business. And the premise of his business is to create a media empire that is solely supporting and independent from anyone. It can't be distracted, can't be devalued, it can't be taken over. That supports the Black content, and be it media, be it
Hmm.
movies, music, and so forth. But he can't get Blacks to invest. His first investor was a personal friend. And I've always said this. It's just like my grandfather said. He says the best way to keep a secret from someone is to put it in a book because people don't read.
Indeed.
Why don't Blacks invest in Black businesses, or do they?
That's another good question. We've been having these conversations around our table. I don't have the answer, but I do have it anecdotally can tell you we have to continue to break down the barriers in our community that exist between each other. There really should be no barriers between Black people, especially things that are not recoverable, resolvable. I can't imagine what animosity or distrust I would have towards another Black person outside of things they've shown me. But that's what I think persists in our community is this level of lack and this level of distrust between each other. I always lament to know when I see a Black family, a patriarch and a matriarch that are maybe in their, let's call it, like by the time they're in their 70s or 80s, I guess at this point they have families. Their kids are older, probably my age. Let's say they got 3, 4 kids my age or older. It's amazing that those families don't have much in the way of wealth and resources, right? Because I think about a family of 4 or 5 or 6. If you're all rowing in the same direction for a lifetime, there's really nothing stopping you from becoming wealthy. Um, and if you don't become wealthy and everyone is healthy, well, able-bodied, there was a level of distrust in that family, and they will never talk about it. But there's a level of reticence, of distrust, of lack mindset. That's another thing that plays into why we can't achieve financially. But it does come down to those two principles, those first things of reticence, of just that lack of trust and being able to in hierarchy. I think, and I was writing about this right before our show today. We don't respect hierarchy in a Black community, um, leadership, process, protocol, and that's why we can't seem to come together to invest because everybody, too many chiefs, not enough Indians, to say it quickly, right? We need some Indians, and the chiefs will be identified by the Indians, but don't it can't work the other way around. I think it's so many things that will cause that to break down. Also, I think success. What do they call it? The fear of success,
Right.
or some of it's imposter syndrome, but even beyond that, it's the true fear of being successful. I'm dealing with that now with friends, or not even friends, but people that I grew up around that I'm being reconnected with through people that I know. I'm giving people opportunities to shine, and they literally are dropping the ball and running, turning around, and they just can't deal. I don't know what that is. It's psychological. It's a block. It's an impediment, but I do a lot of thinking about it. It's not lost on me, but we do have to figure out how we're going to overcome that.
Great. All right. Any last words you want to leave, or last thoughts you want to leave with our audience, and I share with them, and then at the end of that, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and give your information, how they can get the books, how they can get into contact with you. I know you do some public speaking. Let them know that you're available for that. So, firsthand, how can we get your books? and where?
So you can get my books on Amazon.com. You can find links to my books on all my platforms. My link tree is up to date, searchable. My name is searchable. The book's titles are searchable. As far as last words, I think we had a robust conversation, and a lot of my thoughts were in my comments. I just would encourage you to go check me out on social media. Check me out at birdbrand.net. The Bird Brand really does exist for you. I had some content talking about why I do what I do, and it really comes down to seeing the world be a better place for me, for you, and all of us achieving happiness and success. Check me out again, birdbrand.net. You can reach me 215-778-4048. You can also reach me on Instagram, any socials, Donald.birdbrand on all socials. Thank you, Kevin, again for this opportunity to speak to your audience. I really appreciated it, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Don't go anywhere anytime soon. It's not my audience, it's your audience. I just happen to be the conduit in between of opening the stage door and pulling back the curtain for you. That's all I did. You're the star of the
Thank
show.
you.
So,
Well, thank
to our
you.
listeners, like I said, you can find us on RMK Productions and Network on our YouTube page. If you like to be a guest on the show or want to comment or give some feedback, you can go to info at rmkproductions.org. I'm a firm believer that surround yourself with people that are like-minded people. My friends are not the type of people that drive by an accident, they stop and help. So if you're one of those people, then feel free to like, follow, or share. If not, this is entertainment for some of us, and this is education, and this is our version of human AI. So, with that said, I've made myself some notes here from the conversation we had, and hopefully that you've made some notes. So, what I've learned from Donald Bird, my good friend, is execution equals equity. And what I mean by that, ideas are not meant to do nothing without consistency or intentions or actions behind them. The legacy is a system. It is not what you leave behind, but it's what you build daily with purpose. Family and faith is the foundation of everything that the two of us, of all of us, do. The Bird Brand movement proves that business and success and personal fulfillment can exist. Reevaluating people is just not a philosophy. And you've listened to Mr. Bird say this, it is a blueprint for the next generation of leaders and wealth creation. Purpose is driven, a framework to help everyone or every individual live a life with alignment, personally and professionally and spiritually. So, with that said, what Donald Byrd reminds us is that legacy is built on what we have. It is built on what we executed. Success without purpose is empty. Leadership without love is short of life. And when you reevaluate people, you reevaluate life itself. So, to our listeners, I want you to remember discipline does leave evidence. So, go out and build something with the purpose and help other people every single day. My grandfather always said, when you get to a place in life that you can help someone else out, he said, reach one, teach one. And with that said, we fade to black and we're out. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time.